Okay, I think we're live. I'm going to ask the duck to keep an eye on the chat, as always. But here we are, Casual Friday's back. The market has moved so much. The only problem is it just retraced the whole move the next day. That's kind of been a recurring theme, which we'll discuss. But yeah, let us know if audio, video are fine. Duck, can you say something as well? I think you were a tad loud last time, so I turned down the volume.
You turned your volume down because I was too loud.
That's my attempt at fixing it.
Okay, yeah.
Given the circumstances, but yeah, if we're good on the AV front, we can get chatting.
I mean,
to me, the 5-minute candle's red as soon as we went live. It's over.
I mean,
you still have time to exit before 0.
I mean, the market does look kind of shit. Not gonna lie, but I mean, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Are we okay? Everything working?
To me, like, the video looks good. The audio, you sounded nice, but
well, some things don't change. Let me quickly take a peek. Yeah. AV good. Don is a bit loud. He's always loud. It's fine.
I'm sorry. I can put the microphone a little bit further away, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah. No, it's just not a big deal, I'm sure. I'll be quiet. ASMR stream. Okay, cool. So first things first, get the FTX app. Why? Because they support us, and support them because they support us. Rather straightforward, but also because it's the best mobile trading app on the market. Got all your stable coins there, all your altcoins, your NFTs. You can, after your uncle's had a couple wines too many, take his phone and finally sell that XRP in Cardano he's been holding since 2017. Put him out of his misery. So yeah, get the FTX app and be sure to check them out. Links in the description as the sponsor of Technical Roundup. So, also, YouTube stuff. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We need to get to 40k. I think we're almost at Bitcoin parity when it comes to our sub count. I don't know whether that's bullish or bearish or what to make of that. I'm sure you can make arguments both ways. But all the helps on the YouTubes would be much appreciated. Duck, I mean, just normal, crypto stuff first. How are you doing? How was your difficult holiday in this very PvP market?
I mean, I'm not complaining. I think I caught it cold. I hope it isn't like COVID, but the sinuses are killing me. But other than that, surf's good, sun is good, got a little bit sunburnt, people are good, and I can't complain.
Nice. Okay, I mean that's good to hear. One of the things I put in the title is how did we get here, right? And it seems that it all happened rather quickly. Right? Because in my mind, the rough timeline is we had ETF rally, then the all-time high break didn't happen, and everyone was kind of just waiting for it to accelerate. It never did. Then it fell back within the range, and that's when I turned bearish. And the first time I was like, right, this isn't just a slow all-time high breakout. This is just a piece of shit, right? And essentially, the market's been down only since then, and not just technical stuff, but also just the macro, whatever that means, the big picture stuff that spills over into our not so little world. That's only been getting worse, right? Yeah. But it just feels like it all happened very quickly. We had like up only ETF, all time high breakout price action, yada yada. And then suddenly we're here where 45k is like an amazing bull target and like a gift from the gods. What kind of map do you have? Did you kind of get the vibe I'm going for? What sort of roadmap do you have for how we ended up here? Because I guess if you're the cynical version is that the ETF pump should have like never happened, and that all-time high was just an amazing fake out signal. But the thing is, even if you bought the all-time high breakout, like falling back within the range, that's usually the death sentence for BTC, right? When those high time frame breakouts fail to materialize. I'm just going to show it on the weekly. It's literally like this type of thing. When you get like really clear areas which should lead to continuation and don't, that's usually a very scuffed type of structure. So that's kind of my mental map for it at the very least. Like ETF rally, all-time high breakout being slow, people got kind of complacent. And I remember all the debate on Twitter, like, are we just being impatient? Is it just slow? Like, is it bearish that it's taking this long? Yada, yada. But no matter where you fell on that debate, as soon as it falls back within that range, you have to risk off, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's like, technical-wise, I think that was the point where it all went to shit, basically. Right. How funny would it be if that turned into like a giant head and shoulders?
Oh, fuck off.
Which I don't think
what
is
the
going to
duck
happen.
is implying there is something like this, and the measured move for that is what, minus 2,000 Bitcoin, right? I mean, that would be quite something.
But no, I think that's like the best technical setup for it. And then in general, I think what we basically did was rally on inflation fears, and we rallied so hard from all the way back of like 4 digits to 5 digits that we just kind of overshot. And I think that's why it's like calming down a little now. It's just we went up so much before the data that everyone was kind of suspecting would came out. And then once the data came out, everyone was just like, okay, now what? Is it going to go high? Is it going to go lower? And so far, it's just been lower. And I mean, there's a bunch of memes with like, okay, Bitcoin is down 7%, inflation is up 7%. It's perfect hedge. But it's like, yeah, we are up a shitload, right?
Yes.
And people tend to forget that. And I think the reason why people tend to forget that is because they just kind of bought high. But we're still at a really, really high price point, in my opinion. Like if you think back, Bitcoin at 10K seemed like an amazing kind of price to hit back in 17.
Yes.
Now we're like chilling above 30 and everyone's freaking the fuck out. So I think there's like the perspective is missing, because at the end of the day, we're still very, very high in comparison to what we used to be just a few years prior.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, but no one likes the P word, perspective in that regard, because especially if you consider that as the cycle progresses further, the amount of people kind of reasonably using Bitcoin as a benchmark decreases, right? So, BTC is down whatever from the highs, but some of these alts that people use to benchmark or where they're big bets, they're down, 60, 70, 80%, right? With a much lower probability of coming back. So that definitely makes it sting a little more. I've got two things I want to quickly rant on. You can just jump in at any point and interrupt me, right? The first one is actually related to what you were saying. It's fucking infuriating when the market looks really strong in the altcoin sector, but Bitcoin is lagging or not being as strong, etc. The argument we always make, and I'm even a boomer with you in this regard, right, is that you want at the very least a neutral to strong Bitcoin, because at worst that's going to help your altcoin do well, right? It's not going to siphon away any of its gains or take that flow because it's trickled down anyway. But what you see is when, as we've seen over and over again, I mean, ETH BTC is the apex example of this. When people talk about flippening, the market's fucked, right? But with altcoins in general, when the prevailing sentiment becomes this whole notion of, oh, boomer coin, why do you give a shit about it when I'm up 10 zillion% on whatever my altcoin is? The market just tends to get fucked, right? That happens way closer to the tops than it does the bottoms, to say the least. Now, that on its own is fine. I don't disagree with, I don't have massive issues with that. If you're early to the AVAX ecosystem or Cosmos or Solana, whatever, maybe your multiplier is so massive, although for most people that's by definition not going to be the case, right? But maybe your multiplier is so massive that you really actually couldn't give a fuck what Bitcoin does, even though you should, right? My issue is when those same fucking people, when their altcoins are getting battered because Bitcoin is down, in order to make their bull thesis, they start leaning on Bitcoin strength in general, right? And saying, oh, look how strong BTC looks, all this bad news, it hasn't broken down yet, and all this other stuff, once they've already eaten a ton of shit on their altcoin positions. It's you can't have it both ways, right? You can't be so grandiose and say, oh, well, BTC doesn't matter, orange coin, lol, look at my altcoins. And then after you get your shit pushed in, you're like, oh, well, the orange coin's actually really good, and this could be a positive indicator for risk on, yada, yada. I just don't fucking get it. The mental gymnastics don't fully align with me there. I don't know what you think about that topic, but we just keep doing it cycle after cycle. It's insane.
Yep. And that's usually, I don't want to call an altcoin bear market, even though it does kind of look like an altcoin bear market. But that usually happens when people are just still stuck in altcoins and they just gravitate towards zero, in my opinion. That switch from, okay, my altcoin doesn't really give a shit about Bitcoin to, okay, Bitcoin does look good, so maybe I can keep holding my altcoin. Because that's like you said, that's mental gymnastics, right? And that is not really an informed and not really a well thought out plan. It's just, I'm just gonna lean on anything that's giving me any hope. and that just makes me bearish on the altcoins, right? If they have to lean on everything else that they've just kind of hated on for the last few months, just makes me even more bearish. Chart-wise, altcoins look terrible to me. So that supports that thesis at least a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I can already see like altcoins bouncing like 200% tomorrow, and I'm gonna catch a lot.
And
of
your
shit
view
for
wouldn't
it.
change at all. Yeah.
But yeah, for me, this is like a top thing for altcoins. Like when the altcoin holders go from okay, my altcoin doesn't give a shit to but Bitcoin is actually at support, so maybe it's gonna rally. That's like a bad sign if you're seeing it.
Yeah, it's just shit reasoning, right? And it's not really asking for a lot to say that BTC doing well is good for your altcoins. BTC doing less well is probably, on average, over time, less good for your altcoins, especially if it's volatile to the downside. Like, that shouldn't be a fucking controversial thing. People are up so much, or maybe they want to be up so much and they're late to the trade, that they're happy to just ignore Orange Coin, especially when it stops trending, and it's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. You know, it's whatever. So that kind of tickles me a bit, just from just because the argument is so bad, right? The other thing is, as I mentioned on Weekly Open to some extent, and like, this is one where my actions diverge from my words, because from my words I'm quite harsh, but from my actions, if you speak to any of the gentlemen in this space, I'm on very good terms with them. We share ideas and so on. But guess what? It's fucking OnChain Analysis again, right? Because it's just so fucking cynical, Don. Because what you see is when the market's up, OnChain is the most like sophisticated way to beat the bullish drum without being just like a pure emoji moon boy, right? It has this veneer of intelligence and of like scientific research and complexity and nuance, like, oh, holy shit, he's analyzing the chain, like real economic activity. He's not just drawing lines on the chart. And that veneer of sophistication just attracts a bunch of fucking idiots and suckers who don't understand the metrics for the life of them, right? And you get the same with floor, model, plan B, whatever type of stuff. It's the same mechanism, right? But then as soon as the market starts going down or becomes more difficult to trade or does anything but just go up for weeks on end, as we've seen recently, the overwhelming majority of the on-chain guys aren't fucking posting much on-chain. It's all derivative stuff, right?
Yep.
And so that leads you to a very cynical conclusion that when the market's going up, you can use fucking anything to make the market look bullish because it's only going up, right? Like all these indicators, whatever toolkit you have is only going to point in one direction. But as soon as it stops doing that, you need some actual fucking data and the conditions become difficult. People go to what works, but what isn't as sexy, which is, futures, derivatives, even some TA stuff, whatever. So you just end up in this very cynical cycle where you beat the on-chain drum, which is enormously effective in terms of engagement, when the market doesn't require any predictive power or edge whatsoever. And then the moment it does, you abandon the thing which you championed in the first place and rely on the stuff that isn't voodoo,
Yeah.
and maybe I'm just a boomer, but that is just so fucking cynical to have, especially when you build like a whole brand around that type of thing. It's I don't know.
I mean, I know where you're coming from. I don't know if you've seen the Willy Woo drama.
Was there drama? I know he closed his newsletter. I just didn't know it was.
Yeah. There was a post that basically put all his calls since the top on the chart.
Also, Will, Dylan, etc. I love you guys, but come on, you know that I'm gonna troll on-chain a little bit when we talk all the time about derivatives data more than anything. I just gotta do that. I'm sure they don't mind. We're on good terms.
Yeah, but basically
fight
what
me
happened...
in Miami if you didn't. Sorry, go on.
What basically happened was, like every few $1,000s, he was like, "This is still bullish. This is still bullish. This is still bullish." And now that it hit like 30K ish, he was like, "Okay, yeah, this is kind of shit." And then he closed his newsletter. I mean, made a shitload of money with it, as far as I understood. I don't know.
Allegedly in Minecraft, all of these things, right?
Yes, of course.
This is nearly new in Minecraft. We're talking.
But yeah, that's basically it, right? You make a bunch of money allegedly, or you make a bunch of money using on-chain,
right?
And people buy into it, even though allegedly you've been in a fund that's been blown up to pieces.
Oh Jesus!
Before
we're reaching back there, are we? The very back of the sofa.
I mean, if you're in a fund and then that fund blows up and then you start selling on chain to people and make a shitload of money of it, I'm gonna make a comment about it.
Right, reasonable.
But yeah, so that's kind of it, right? That's how you make money in crypto. If you don't want to trade it, I guess, in my opinion, allegedly, whatever. I don't want to get sued.
Thing is, like, even if you talk to the on-chain advocates themselves, they're like, "Oh, well, it's not very good for short and medium term, but it's good for good for showing you the longer term trend." It's like, I can show you the longer term trend. Look, I've just put up like a 3-month log chart of Bitcoin. It goes up. There you go. I've just done what all the fucking on-chain professors to do, right? And then if you want actual, you know, a more likely source of edge in the short to medium term, let's look at, you know, technical market structure. Let's look at futures data, derivatives, whatever it may be. But you can't have your fucking cake and eat it, you know? So yeah, that's just a little kind of cynical angle there. But this is just the state of the market, right? Going to rant about stuff that kind of perks up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that I like about the bear markets is all of these people that I mean, I'm not hating every on-chain guy, but I do hate like how it works.
Right.
How you kind of just post about it and you get 1 million followers that have no idea what the fuck they're actually following.
Yes, and thing is, that's demonstrably true because, for example, credit to Will, poor guy has literally done like a full fucking YouTube series on every single metric he uses and how it works. But still, some of the questions he gets are fucking, you know, you could tell people don't understand a single thing apart from maybe if it's like blatantly bullish or bearish. But for me, it was really obvious when early in the phase where he was, you know, including more derivative stuff into his analysis, he would just post like, "Oh, funding spiked on this dip." And you had like literally dozens, and I'm not exaggerating, dozens of comments being like, "What's funding? Spiked. What does this mean? Whale manipulate?" Question mark. And it's like, hold up. So you expect me to believe that A, these people are like understanding all of his nuanced on-chain analysis, like looking into different metrics and stuff that is actually pretty hard to pass if you don't know how the indicator's built or what it represents, etc. But at the same time, those same fucking people don't know what funding is and it's too difficult to understand from a Google search. Like that just can't be true, right? Both of those things can't be true because point A tells me that these are some dumb motherfuckers, and point B just kind of reaffirms that. You know, it's like it's just very hard to reconcile. You've got people who have this like super good understanding of 20 different on-chain metrics, but like he says the word funding, and they're like, "Will, please explain what this means." It's like, oh my fucking god, just shut up.
Anyway. I like the turn this Friday episode has taken already.
Oh god. I mean, as you said, when the market's like this, you can give yourself a bit of leeway, and I take comfort in the fact that I'm friends with these guys, so I can fucking yank their chain. I'm sure they're mostly fine with it. And again, it's like a lot of it is down to his audience, right? More so than the guy himself. He's fucking made all the resources you could want to understand what he's saying. If people are too dumb to actually make an effort, that's not on him, right? That's on them. It'd be the same with me, like posting some risk management thing or something about levels or even future stuff and having all the resources there available and people still asking like, "Oh, what does this mean? I don't get it." It's like, listen, if I've given you the resources to figure it out and I'm referencing stuff that I've quote unquote taught before, that's not on me. That's on you, right? Mm-hmm. But in any case, you know, it's a very, as we've discovered, it's incredibly effective because you basically sound smart when the market is bullish. Because like instead of, "Oh yeah, well it's going up because I guess the buyers are being more aggressive than the sellers," right? Like basically net inflow versus outflow, supply demand imbalance equals big green candle. I mean, you can attach whatever fucking narrative you want to it. But the second it gets tricky, is like, "Oh well, on-chain, never heard of her. Time for good old futures and TA," you know.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not like it only happened once, right?
No.
I mean, we've seen the same or like similar players do the same thing last bull market basically, and then they started pivoting out and pivoting back in, and it's like it's whatever. You can't do anything about it. Like even if you rant on it, it's not going to.
Yeah, this is for me, just to be clear. Like this is my catharsis, you know. I'm not hoping to make a change or anything in that regard. Yeah, okay, that was a quite long segment, but I mean, someone has to fucking say it, right? You'd love this. I was speaking to Chimp Zoo this morning. He held one of his Twitter Spaces things, right? Mm-hmm. And I just jumped in. I was like, you know, I'm always cordial with these, but I'm too nice for my own good, right? That's whatever. And I'm just talking to him, and I'm like, listen, do you not think, at least on Twitter, you lean into the character a bit too much? Like the market's been range bound for like 3 months and you've sent like 300 tweets and a ton of high conviction directional calls, this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, is this just a marketing ploy, essentially, for, you know, to generate engagement, doing the Twitter spaces, whatever, to get people to either go to ZooCap or go to the membership and whatever. Mentorship, I should say. And just for context, the mentorship, you know, for those unaware, it's his, you know, well, it's his mentorship group, which is private, of course, but the entry fee is $20,000 per. I mean, well, no, it's just $20,000. I think that's the entry fee, and that makes it, I think, probably one of the most expensive kind of trading related products on the market, right? At least as far as the ones we know. So I kind of just jumped into the spaces. You know, he was very cordial. I was as well, because I'm way too British for my own good. I just kind of poked and prodded a bit in terms of like edge erosion and who are the types of people who apply, and, you know, just how he responds to criticism about, you know, the obvious, that like the market's down 60% and you're taking like 20K from people to teach them, you know, you've got like a course or whatever. And at the very least, I managed to, you know, get the message across that you know, if you want to start learning how to trade, this isn't 2017 anymore. The amount of good, high quality, free resources that are available are basically unparalleled compared to any other point in time. And, you know, if you're someone who has like a massive portfolio and you just want access to him and his calls, or maybe to learn on your own pace or whatever, that's your decision. It's just not one that I would personally make. I know you've got much stronger views on this, but I just thought I'd, you know, it's tangentially related. I'd chat with him this morning, and also just to add a bit of a humorous flair to it, because this literally sounds like two boomers ranting, right? It reminded me of when an amazing, I even told him this joke, and I think he appreciated it. He was a good sport about it. I said that, and you remember this as well, Dak, you know, there was a paid group, and a lot of these paid groups in 2017 were charging in BTC, right? It was like 0.03 or 0.1, whatever it may be. And then as the market was going up, people were fucking complaining, because every month they'd be paying the same amount of BTC, but that would be up so much in USD terms, right? And so the market actually topped when when a lot of these big groups started reducing the BTC amount that they were charging per month, because the USD appreciation was so rapid. And I was like, maybe the market can bottom with you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe when you increase or stop increasing your BTC fee, the market can stop going down or whatever. But yeah. Well, any response?
I mean, honestly, I mean, not even talking about the quality of his stuff. I have not been in it, but if you're paying 0.5 Bitcoin for something like that, I think you're an idiot, just straight up. But that could be me just being ignorant, because I've not been in the group. But you might as well just spend it trading the market yourself. You're not going to get too much edge by just leeching off of someone else. You don't need to spend that money. You can just spend it by getting taught how to trade by the market, I think. And even better, if you want to take like a mentorship or whatever, go to poker players or like whatever, like older kind of market participants that have been in the game for a while, that can teach you how to risk manage. I think that's the only kind of thing that would make sense for like a mentorship. People that have actually been around for a long time, that know how to not blow up. Because what you're basically doing, if you're paying someone on crypto Twitter for like mentorship, in the most part anyway, is paying someone that just degens around with your fees. I just don't think that makes much sense. Like, most of the people that you're paying have been in the market for a few years. And I wouldn't say, like, it's the same for me, right? Like, I've been full-time crypto since 2017, right? I would count myself towards that as well. That's why I'm not giving mentorships, and in general, like, I couldn't be asked. But there's people around that have been in the markets in general for like 20, 25 years that know that much better. I think that could teach you much better. I don't think you should be paying 0.5 Bitcoin for anything like this.
That's a lot, man. Like, I know you set the value on your own time, but fucking hell, just in terms of notional amounts themselves, that's not a trivial sum, you know. Whatever. We've wasted 23 minutes of Casual Friday just talking about absolutely fucking nothing. If this was helpful or fun, if you want to do more of this kind of unscripted, I mean, none of this is scripted, but, you know, just off the cuff stuff, let us know in the comments on the video or in the chat, whatever. But you go, from time to time, we gotta let us have a bit of a segment, you know. Let's actually talk about stuff. So I've got this little content tab. Let's start with what should we go with? So you can pick Duck. There's one about Starkware raising funds at 6 billion valuation. Stripe launches payment support for crypto businesses. There's monthly web traffic to crypto exchanges fell by 20% in February. Then there's one,
I'm down to talk about that one.
Let's go.
Let's go that one.
And then we'll do the executive order, the FCA shutting down crypto ATMs, Lights, the big short on Luna, and then a quick news summary from DB. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, so fine. You seem to have a hot take straight out the gate. This is from the block. Monthly web traffic to crypto exchanges fell by 20% in February. And, there's a chart showing that. The numbers include both spot and derivative trading. Binance saw the majority of February's crypto exchange web traffic, followed by Coinbase, Bybit, FTX, and Gate. And that's mostly it. It's just basically lifting from the block's data dashboard, which is a wonderful resource. And that's it in article form. What do you think? Is this bullish, bearish?
It's bearish, I think, in general. It's definitely bearish for altcoins. People are going to hate on me again. But I think you need volumes in general for altcoins to do well. It's not going to do, they're not going to do well when volumes are down. And there's a simple reason for that, right? Most of these altcoins still have emissions, right? So they're inflationary by a large amount, actually. I mean, just look at Dogecoin. If you're actually interested, you should research how inflationary Dogecoin is. But most of these coins, they inflate your money away, basically. So as long as volume is down, there's too little buyers to kind of counteract that inflation. So you're going to sit in a coin that's basically much, much worse than the dollar. And no one's speculating on it, which is just bad news for you, right? And with regards to NFTs, same kind of deal. Not necessarily because the NFT collections get bigger, right? It's not like you have a 10K profile picture collection that adds another 1,000 because market's been bad. But there's going to be more and more of those, right? So you kind of get inflated away by just people spreading thin. And if no new people come in, and I know that this is going to sound like a Ponzi scheme, but it kind of has that vibe anyway to me.
How do we pay off the new depositors?
Yeah, but I mean, that's the problem,
sure.
right?
Yeah, I mean, this thing, crypto has like a natural, even Bitcoin, just it's more scheduled and you know what it's going to be. But there's a natural supply in the market, right? A kind of overhang from, as you say, emissions or just a monetary policy of whatever asset you're trading, right? And you basically need enough marginal buyers or enough demand to at least be able to absorb the natural supply that token emits just by virtue of existing, right? And then you get your really imbalanced moves and the market just doesn't care and it's happy to, lift all offers, etc. But if no one's speculating, yeah, as you mentioned, the supply overhang doesn't really change, right? It's just the demand side gets crushed. It's like I saw someone tweet this chart and it basically showed Bitcoin basis, like futures, quarterly futures basis, or just the USD lending rate. It was one of those being completely flat. And it was like, oh, well, this is so bullish, etc., because like the leverage is gone and, or, maybe even it implies bearish positioning in the market, etc. And I was like, well, it just means speculators don't give a fuck, right?
Yep.
It just means there's no speculation in the market. And yes, when you get like too much open interest in general, right, especially when it comes alongside consistently high perpetual swap funding rates, or the quarterly futures basis gets really fucking wide, etc., then you end up in this weird tangle between basically derivatives longers versus people arbing whatever that premium is, right? That's kind of the battle you get. But at least that there's a market dynamic there, right? When you've got like lending rates fucking zeroed out and quarterly basis, I think it's like at 3% or something at the moment, it just means no one's fucking speculating, right? And perp funding hasn't just been like mega stuck negative, right? Because that could be one of the, bullish outcomes to this. Like, okay, there is some speculation and derivatives are aggressively positioned to the downside, but the market just keeps moving sideways and grinding. Because it's expensive to be wrong when funding is against you and it's skewed quite strongly in one direction, right? So that's when you can start to engineer the case for some sort of short squeeze or derivatives being wrong or absorption, etc. When you've got like let's say for example consistently negative funding, but the market doesn't seem to give a shit, right? At some point, those shorts who are paying that funding, usually at like a high rate, if it's notable, they're going to have to close, right? Because they're bleeding collateral, unless of course the market nukes, in which case they have to close shit. They're off happy. But that's the whole point. We don't really have that at the moment. When the market pumps, perps come into line pretty quickly. We haven't seen like real, prolonged or sticky divergences between perp funding and price. And as for, quarterly basis and cash lending rates, etc., it's a bit of a ghost town in terms of speculation, which is generally not a bad thing in terms of just like bottoms and stuff like that. But it's not like immediately bullish. You do want people because look, when you have leverage in the system, what it means is people want to be long, right? That's not a bad thing 24/7. And also, this is one that fucks with me personally. Like when the market is up like 10 zillion%, the commentary, the zeitgeist becomes, oh, well, the market just needs to flush all this leverage and then we can keep going, right? Mm-hmm. Just take a fucking look at what happens to price when you get those huge open interest wipes. You and I have discussed this like ad fucking nauseam in Technical Roundup, right? Price, when you get those types of OI flushes, it's over, right? There's no flush and it keeps going. It usually just fucking nukes and then grinds and nukes some more. Just like we had, you remember that whole liquidation wick at like 40k or whatever that was? It's like always the same thing. You need to be exiting when the open interest and the funding are exorbitant, and maybe buying the flush for a quick bounce. But in general, when you get those open interest wipeouts, and again, the narrative is, oh, just wipe them out and the weak hands are gone and we can keep going. It's like, no, just take a fucking look at what happens, at least when you get the real, like, quote unquote flushes, which are just, market structure getting obliterated. Normally you get sideways at best, but it's usually the end of a trend, not trend continuation. And it takes 5 seconds to find that out. Just by looking at Coinalyze, just price versus, open interest or even aggregated liquidations to some extent on like a 12-hour or daily time frame. But just the narrative is so appealing that all these losers are in the market. Maybe we just go down 5%, so we can go up 500 again. It's like not fucking quiet, mate.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in general, what oftentimes like what people confuse is they look at March 2020 and they're like, okay, this was a large leverage swipe and we went up afterwards. So this has to, like, every time this happens, we have to go up afterwards. But the context obviously matters, right? You have like a sideways going market and then you wipe everyone and then the stock market makes a new all-time high and like crypto just mega rallies. I mean, that's a very different context to, okay, crypto is trending at 60K. The stock markets are like overheating basically. And then you get like a wipe. That wipe is obviously going to be a little bit different, right? But I don't know. People don't like context, I guess.
And low time frame wipes versus just the whole market gets obliterated, they're quite different things as well. Yes. What do you think of this, just complete off topic? What do you think of this monthly chart for the S&P 500?
I mean, with like the S&P, I always dread to make comments about it. But
yeah, I know, because TA is a meme in that market or whatever. But just like eye test as a speculator.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good to me. Right. I think in general, speculation has, like, that's the thing, right? We've had so much speculation in any market in the last 2, 3, 4 years that it's really, really tough to expect that to continue for much longer, right? It's like, you don't want to have everyone in the market. It's just something that we know in crypto, right? When you have
gatekeeping, Donald, you just don't want working class people to make it.
Yeah, but I mean, at some point, like,
put down the ladder behind you, man.
At some point, you just run out of willing buyers, right? That's right. The same with crypto. I've actually been terrified, just chilling on this island.
Do you realize how absurd that sounds? Yeah, I've just been terrified chilling on this island.
Let me finish.
This channel.
Let me finish, because every person, or like almost every person that I meet that is like a digital nomad traveling kind of type is like into crypto big time.
Yeah, that's
has told me, and I've not mentioned it myself, right? I don't talk about myself in these kind of circumstances. I hate talking about crypto in general. Same. But I've been talked to, like, you should buy this altcoin, you should buy that. DeFi interesting, NFTs interesting. Oh, look at these yields. And this is like just random off the cuff like discussions, and that terrifies me. And I feel like that's been going on with the stock market as well, where Reddit, basically the biggest or fastest growing subreddit is just like all stocks related. Which
yeah, now the anti-work got nuked, right?
Yeah, which is like, it's terrifying time to be in the markets, right? When you have all of these kind of weird phenomenons where like everyone is trading stocks now, everyone is into crypto, everyone just puts their money into the markets left and right. And I mean, maybe they're right? Maybe we get like massive inflation and the markets just keep going up, but it's a weird spot to be in, and it's really, really tough to navigate, because my crypto experience tells me, okay, this should mega nuke. It's just this is very, very, like, it's a very, very different kind of market, and I would not make that comment about the S&P or like in general stock markets. Just doesn't make much sense. I don't have much edge there, but it's a terrifying situation in my opinion. And this
just
is like
a retail
markets.
gambling bubble. Just not, it's not Bitcoin in 2017 anymore. It's, you know, real companies. Yeah, I know the crypto spill. The thing is, the counter argument, as we always have to consider, is that crypto is just really big now, you know, and it's changed a lot over the last 5 years, and so you should be less surprised by that type of stuff. But I mean, in general, if you look at like the state of altcoin charts, plus the fact that that speculation spilled over to like the whole Robinhood GME phenomenon, etc., it's clearly a bit more widespread than that. My experience is also pretty fucked, because one of my favorite restaurants in London announced NFTs. And I'm like, you're a fucking restaurant. What do you mean NFTs? And they're like, oh, this is like the first part of our metaverse play. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Especially food. Like, can someone explain that to me? How they like the one thing that, you know, maybe technologically we're not quite there yet in terms of digitizing the experience. Surely food is the most ambitious one, to say the least, right?
So Matrix kind of style.
I know, literally ridiculous. I was like, nuke it. And also, you know, I was sitting at my usual spot for dinner, and the amount of crypto stuff was so fucking high. And this guy was like, "Oh, I bought." I tweeted about this. This guy said, "Oh, I'm buying Phantom because it's faster than Solana, and Solana went up like 15,000% or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, interesting." And this is the day before Andre fucked off. So obviously that guy got fucking obliterated. And then I heard also, you know, one of the waiters telling me that this guy, in order to pay for his food, he opened some app and sold some spot XRP into his like checking account to pay for the food, and he has like $500,000 in XRP.
God.
Which I get, and I'm like, this is like the sailor of, you know, in terms of conviction levels, where you don't even have enough to finance one of your lunches. You like need to go into your cold storage or hot wallet, I guess in this case, and sell some XRP in order to live your life as a normal human being. So that part is pretty mad.
Yeah, I'm not really on board with that. Like I I don't like that development at all. It was nicer when people didn't know about crypto and you could just like, you put money in, and then I mean people started talking about it slowly. Now that everyone's talking about it, it's a little bit different. And I mean, the problem with it, right? The main problem that I have with it is when people kind of explain to me why it's a good investment,
right.
And I just hear these shit, like legitimately shit reasons.
I mean, it's faster than Solana, bro.
Yeah, it's just like, it's basically like the anti-selling of something, right? You sit there and you like something, and then someone comes to you and tries to sell it to you in a really, really shitty way, and you're gonna be like, oh shit.
It's like when a massive idiot agrees with your argument or your point of view, and you're like, oh no, like I feel so, my conviction is completely fucking evaporated.
Yep, that's basically how it felt.
That tends to be a really good market signal, by the way. When you find like suddenly a bunch of idiots are agreeing with you, whom you normally counter trade or don't have a clue, you should be like, like why is this suddenly obvious to this person? You know.
Yeah.
Okay. Other news stuff. This is just about the executive order. The market, Trabuco made a thread, and I'm glad Trabuco is making a thread, but you know, in the absence of like a 20% move to the downsides, that was nice to see. But it was basically about how crypto is still inefficient with trading around news. And basically that the market dumped when the executive order was announced, but this is something that had been floated for months before, and then it bounced, and then obviously the bounce got full retrace, whatever, just a bunch of shit. I still think the useful takeaway here, especially when it's stuff like this, like in the absence of impactful, clear regulation, because the executive order is a bit of a, you know, just like an exploratory, just take a look at this stuff sort of order, right? It doesn't have explicit provisions within it. Mm-hmm. I think, as we mentioned in Technical Roundup, it's really how the market reacts to news that's more important than the news itself in many cases, or even in most cases, right? Because you remember on the way up, especially early bull market, like you had Binance get hacked and no one gave, the market didn't give a shit,
Yep.
right? Like it just absorbed it, like it wasn't there. Or, Solana just kept going offline. I mean, now it looks like the chart's been plugged out of life support, but at the time, the
Yep.
fucking blockchain's down for God knows how long, and then it was a blip. You couldn't even see it on the chart because the market was willing to absorb it. Same with the unlocks, right? Do you remember the whole Solana unlock, quote unquote, FUD? That
Yep.
all these investors
Good
get their first
times.
tranche and it's going to fucking nuke to zero, etc. And the market just ate it up. So it's not really whether the news is bad equals market go down and news is good equals market go up. It's more like how does the market responding to this news with some consideration to its quote unquote severity, right? That tends to give, in my opinion at least, I know we've written about this, much more signal than trying to pass the news itself.
I honestly think it depends a lot on just what part of the market cycle you're in, right? When there's like an up only market, it's always going to be like that, where the bad news just kind of gets shrugged off because people are happy to buy it, right? People are like, oh, this is a dip, I can buy it. And then it just keeps on going. And then when you start entering another market cycle, which is people just taking profits, and they see, okay, these are bad news, they're like, maybe like they were already on the edge of like trying to sell or whatever, or like thinking about selling. And they're like, maybe I should sell. And then they sell, and that just keeps on, like, price pushes down because people sell, and then it just keeps on going. It always comes back to kind of what type of market you're trading in, rather than, okay, this is good news or bad news, like you said.
You remember when the China headlines were completely battering the market? You'd have some like minister or government official just fart in the wrong room, and the market would go down 5% and like fully retrace the move. It's like, oh my god, we can't be. But the thing is, you ended up getting some good signal out of that when the China headlines stopped having as much of an impact, right? That's a sign of relative strength in itself. That's really the thing you want to look for, where you are in the market cycle and the relative strength of the market relative to that news. If you're getting good news, the market's pumping, and the pumps don't get fully retraced, that's pretty good. Or like in a bull market, if FUD is getting absorbed, that's pretty good. Same with like a downtrend, if good news, fuck all happens, not great. If bad news kind of starts getting absorbed, that's a bit of a sign of a shift. But we've written about this, at length. So go read your old technical roundups. This is a very quick one. UK FCA orders operators to shut down crypto ATMs. Have you ever used a crypto ATM? Yes or no?
No.
Are you an idiot if you use a crypto ATM? Yes or no?
Yes.
Enough there. I don't know if you saw this. Light posted a tweet. He's short Luna USDT from $98. So Luna obviously being like this crazy altcoin that set like spiked its all-time high, and in terms of relative strength on alts, that's really a big one. Especially if you think about the Sol Luna AVAX basket. It's like we just forget Solana was part of it because it's not really pulling its weight. And Light writes, swing failure double top in an alt bear market, and narrative is bankrupt, artificial Ponzi yield when no one wants to borrow stables. Now, I haven't finished my reading on what this stablecoin UST kind of minting mechanism is. I don't know if you're familiar. I'm not yet comfortable enough to just riff on it, and that's probably fucking boring anyway. But in terms of the trade itself, do you have any immediate reactions? I mean, it's clearly the strongest altcoin, but you've got a bit of a risk-defined setup, right?
I like
its swing failed high. And also, like, narratively, it seemed like a ton of market participants piled into the one thing that wasn't just chopping or going down. What do you think of this trade from... again, this probably isn't his full reasoning either, so take it... This is just, we're using this as a launch pad to have a discussion, not like judging Light or anything. Yeah. What do you reckon?
I think I like the trade, honestly, just based on the fact that all the other altcoins just kind of look shit. And like you said, this is the one hype coin that we have, and you see a bunch of Twitter discussion of people that love it, basically telling bears that they're stupid, and that usually is relatively close to the top. At least there's a decent setup there, right? So you have your stop loss in place. You kind of can see, like, if it goes back above 100, it's probably gonna keep going. I don't hate it at all. I think it's a decent play. But I don't know much about Luna, to be honest. I don't really give a shit either. But
Did you
I think
see Sue say that Luna against ETH is a better risk proxy for altcoins than ETH against BTC?
Oh, really?
I just found that as a very strange argument. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't immediately obvious to me why that would be the case.
Yeah, I don't really get it either, honestly. Like, it's just what usually happens in crypto is that you have a bunch of names that just get repeated and repeated and repeated, and they do better than the rest. And then at some point, and I mean, we saw this with Solana, right? At some point, enough is enough, and then they dump more than everything else, and they just continue dumping. So what I think Light is trying to do is basically time that moment, which is really hard to do. There's a good chance that he gets stopped out. But if he's right, it's going to be the top for Luna for months and months, right? And you can write it down 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%, which I think is like a decent bet at this point of the market. Now, if Bitcoin bounces big time, Luna is probably going to go up as well. It's just, I don't quite know how it works with his bullish bias on Bitcoin, but maybe it's a hedge, maybe it's, I don't know. But it seems like not the worst trade in the world to me.
I've got the Sol chart open against USD. This thing is, you know, it's not the same as it once was, to say the least.
I mean, turn off log chart for a second.
Oh, I know. With the log off, you should log off.
Yep. It's tragic.
I mean, if this were, you know the expression, if this, it's actually a pretty shit expression. If this were any other chart, it's like, wait, why are you making an exception for this one thing where you normally have a bag, you know? It's like for BTC, people start drawing really low targets. And they're like, if this were any other chart, I would target. It's like, no, listen, you can apply your reasoning pretty uniformly. There's nothing really special about most of these coins, right? So, I mean, even just like eyeballing what I've got a daily level at around 70 to 80, which is basically this. You know, after it started trending, it had one tiny mini range consolidation before it basically like fucking tripled or something, right? And that's kind of where it's been bouncing at the moment. But if you look at the weekly and monthly, there's really nothing until, you know, if you, from a TA point of view, until much lower. Is this in your mind where this is headed to at least kind of previous structure closer to 40?
Yeah, I mean, what I think
previous accumulation range, if you will.
Yeah, what you do with this kind of stuff, right? If you like Solana and you think it has a future, you just go to ETHUSD, see how it played out 2018, and then roughly buy Solana when it's down the exact same percentage.
That was a rough one, yeah.
And I mean, that's going to be, I don't know, how low? Is it like the $20 range? I think like ETH, and correct me if I'm wrong, could be completely wrong, but it went like down 90%-ish.
It was something silly.
So I think there's a good chance that Solana does the same. Like I'm in general expecting an altcoin, if you haven't noticed, but I'm expecting an altcoin bear market.
Do you think? I mean, we're in it already in your mind, right?
Yeah, I mean we've been in it for quite a while now.
What inning are we in? 94% from high to low on Coinbase.
Yeah, I mean when you have like altcoins down 70%, people are like, oh, it's from 70 to 90%. It's not that much, but the thing is, that's that's a shitload still. Yes. Like it's not like, oh, this is down 70%, 20% isn't like bad. That's not how percentages work, right? So I don't think there's a good chance we're not even halfway through. I don't think.
Is that from a time or price perspective or both?
Both.
Wow, you're going to holiday for a lot of you might as well just buy a place down there at this point.
I mean, the thing is, right, and I could be completely wrong. The reason why I hold this belief so strongly is we have like legitimately warmongering going on, right? Like you have like the US kind of posture for like, I mean, it kind of feels like propaganda-ish against Russia, which I mean makes sense given the state of the world right now. And then you have Russia doing the same, and then you have Ukraine in the middle, and you have like a bunch of people that are really, really not sure what's going to happen with the world. And I mean, I think we're all sitting in the same boat. We don't know like how this is going to play out. And when you have that situation going on, the last thing that you're going to think about if you're not like a crypto degen is, oh, should I like download Coinbase and buy this fucking Dogecoin? I don't think that's going to happen, right? Like if people,
I mean, you can't afford gas, you know?
Yeah, exactly. If you're not in the market yet, I mean, I could see people like chase gains in oil. More so than in crypto shitcoins. Now, I could see people chase Bitcoin gains just based on a narrative that it has in a situation like this. But I have a strong problem with kind of seeing the same thing happen for altcoins. Right. And I could be completely wrong with that, but for me, it just doesn't make any sense. Yes, I think so. Okay. Like it doesn't make any sense for new people to kind of jump into the altcoins head first.
And with what money at this point, right?
Yes. And then the same thing is like if you have a bunch of funds raising a bunch for like stupid shit, and no one wants to buy the old stuff. everyone wants to kind of invest into the new stuff. So the charts that you have are probably going to just bleed out in my eyes. That's kind of my strongly worded opinion on the altcoins. Could be wrong.
With counter trend bounces along the way, wink, wink.
Yeah,
just giving you some hedge.
Yeah, but it's just is what it is, right?
Sure.
It just feels like 2018 all over again, and I think people are just in the same mindset. Okay,
with the same targets, right?
Yeah, we're down 50-60%. That has to be most of it, and I don't think that is the case, right? You look at some of the older old coins and they're down 99%. And
also, Bitcoin could grind sideways in the 30s while all these alts continue to fucking nuke in your book, right? And that's like a plausible scenario.
Yes. And I mean, what happens if Bitcoin nukes, right? Like,
it's over.
There's three things that can happen here, right? Bitcoin goes up, Bitcoin goes down, Bitcoin goes sideways. Bitcoin goes up, there's a chance the altcoins lose against Bitcoin.
They have been recently, yeah.
Yeah, they haven't really been responding too well. But even like, let's say this is actually a positive kind of sign for the altcoins go up with it. Which, I mean, okay, I can kind of see. Bitcoin goes sideways. What we've seen is that, like I talked about earlier, that all these altcoins that they're inflationary, and no one speculating means that they're just starting to bleed out, right? You see a bunch of coins that start bleeding out against USD and against Bitcoin, and that's because the team has to pay itself. There's a bunch of reasons for it, right? And then you also have the option of, okay, Bitcoin actually goes down. And I think a lot of these altcoins have people in them terrified of like what they're sitting in, but terrified of selling after 60-70% drawdown. And I think there's a good chance that panic breaks out in that instance. So you have like two scenarios where there's a high likelihood of either bleed out or just full on capitulation, big drawdown. And then you have the one, which is, okay, Bitcoin goes up and maybe the altcoins go up with it. And for me, the narrative behind the altcoins isn't strong enough to bet on that scenario. It just doesn't make much sense. If I turn back bullish on like Bitcoin, as in I think it's going to exit the range, maybe I start looking at the popular altcoins again. But until that happens, I don't really see much of a reason to do so. So that's my view on it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well articulated. I mean, I've got Axie up here, which is literally the darling altcoin trade of the year, basically. Yeah. But even before Sol Luna AVAX, I think on an annualized basis, it was like the best performer, right? I mean, it's very close to full retracing. Yeah. So even the strongest stuff goes through these cycles, which is why it's worth listening to our weekly open episode, where my argument essentially was, at least what I like to do is, I'm a buyer of Bitcoin and ETH, but when it comes to the altcoin stuff, I'm just going to wait to see. I'm never going to be leading the narrative in that regard, or doing like deep research to find DeFi before it was DeFi, like Lend before it was Aave, that type of stuff. But once the darling kind of hedge fund trade or the clear outlier momentum trade, whatever narrative picks up pace and becomes obvious, like Sam was telling CoinMamba to sell all of his Sol at $3, and that went up to $260, and that's quote unquote late, and at the time / after this crazy big supply scary unlock, right?
Yeah,
there's a lot to capture.
For the people that don't know, Sam actually said that he would buy it all off of him.
Yes.
So it's not like, okay, you should sell this and then it went up. No, he said, you sell it to me, I'll buy all of it. Yeah.
So that's kind of I'm always the conservative boomer in that regard when it comes to how early do I want to be to altcoins, and the answer is not very, because I think in general, once the narrative and the sectoral trade becomes even somewhat clear, even if you have like a quarter of data or something like that, just by being in the market, you can tell what always catches a bid when the market dumps, where's the relative strength, where's the narrative, etc. You don't have to be early to catch really huge chunks of whatever the next big thing is going to be. And I don't know what that is, but it's very likely that it's not one of the things we've already seen,
I agree. And I mean, if you're sitting in something, like that's the problem, right? You could be right on your altcoin thesis and everything just like altcoins in general go up. But if you hold the wrong one, there's a chance that you just don't get any of the gains.
Yes.
And oftentimes the wrong coin is just the old coin, and the right coin is the new one.
Coin.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you don't need to employ crazy complex reasoning to come to terms as to why that's the case, right? It's the basic supply thing. And how many bag holders is this project going to have who are going to be marginal sellers on every pump, essentially, right? And the answer for new coins is a lot fucking lower on average.
And the new coins also, like if you think about it, the new coins raised a bunch of money. They have a war chest and they're willing to spend it
like
because
EOS.
most, I mean, EOS just kept it. But the thing is, like most coins, when they start out, they're gonna like hype it up, obviously, right? They don't want to be like launching and then just get forgotten. So they put in incentives, they put a bunch of stuff. So it makes sense that these do better because just smart traders just gravitate towards them, take advantage of all the incentives, all of that kind of potential that the coin has in theory. And then once the incentives stop, they just move on, right? And then it keeps on going like that. And the bag holder in the end is usually retail, right? That's just how it goes. And if you look how many coins there are, and you can do this on CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap, it's usually somewhere at the top. You can see how that increases every single day, and it's at an absurdly large number now, and it just keeps on growing, right? So
up only.
Yeah, and it will continue to grow. It's really easy to make new coins. So that's something that you have to keep in mind.
That's a good point. Hopefully this is some sort of altcoin bottom. But yeah, my basic thesis is I like to buy Bitcoin and ETH when it's cheap or when I have a setup. As for alts, I need stuff to be up in general, like high time frame trend, and then I'll tag on to whatever's obviously doing well. And even then I'll, not bag hold it, but just trade it. That's probably, is that the highest returning strategy? Fucking absolutely not. Does it work for me? And does it allow me to be very nimble and not bag hold anything? Yes. And that to me is worth much more. DB put a nice little summary of the news. We went through a few of these. UK shut down crypto ATMs. There was an ETF denied, which is whatever. That's like
it happens every other day.
There's a hedge fund which announced it was short tether. I don't know if you saw this. Light retweeted it as well. I'm basically going to echo CMS's take on this, which is you spend however many hours you allocated to look into crypto, and that's the only trade idea you could come up with. It's pretty fucking disappointing. Crypto sanctions, whatever. Did you see this Reuters article about oligarch trying to sell 125,000 BTC?
Yes.
It sounds like a scam. It sounds like a LARPy type of thing being reported. Yes. There are actually no good sources in the article itself. It just smells like a crock of shit to me. But the market full retrace. So that's cool, right? Fuck me.
Yeah, we've had that a couple of times actually already, where like a huge amount, and this also. If you guys think this is just going to be on crypto Twitter or whatever, no, these kind of deals always float around in Telegrams and Discords, especially in ones where like a bunch of like richer individuals are. And
so we don't know, we've been told.
Yeah, allegedly. So it's just this is kind of normal, I feel like. I don't know how credible it is. I haven't had time to look into it.
The sources were garbage. It was like the way they were cited. I mean, it could be true, but fucking hell, I don't know. I feel like we would have heard something more tight story-wise. Did you see this? This is very recent, just for the show. Ukraine asking Paolo to stop transactions. It's that same bloke who was like, "Oh, can all exchanges just fucking nuke Russian citizens or whatever?"
I don't like
now he's been tweeting Paolo saying, "Can you freeze Tether for Russians?" And to me, that's fucking mental.
It is,
especially if you consider the current restrictions in place for Russian citizens in Russia. Like, if they were holding stocks, fucking zero, right? Money in their banks, limited access. Ruble, fucking zero, And then you want to shaft these people with maybe the one type form of, PayPal's gone, Visa gone, MasterCard gone, McDonald's gone.
I was just about to say
right? McDonald's. Fucking McDonald's gone. And so what you want to do is then take perhaps the only somewhat usable form of money, or at least a credible alternative, and blanket, in a blanket fashion and arbitrarily deprive citizens of access despite no wrongdoing. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. I think it's a bit too far. I mean, if exchanges want to pony up and adhere to sanctions that they're legally obliged to do, I think that's legit. If they want to, as many have done, help humanitarian causes and on the ground relief efforts and all that type of stuff, I think that's more than commendable. But straight up, just like nuking a country's citizens from accessing crypto, even with no wrongdoing from the citizens themselves, while at the same time getting a bunch of Westerners to like donate Bitcoin, ETH, and USDT to you via crypto. I don't know. That doesn't doesn't seem terribly consistent to me. I don't know what your thoughts are. I mean, the whole thing fucking stinks, but still.
I agree. I
like
mean,
the situation, you know.
It's very, very anti-crypto.
Yes.
And I think in general, like if exchanges get forced to do it, so be it. I mean, it's not their fault. But if they start doing this kind of stuff out of their own violation, I
volition.
Volition, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I just cannot support it. It's just, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like that that's even in a discussion, because if we're going that route, might as well just stop using crypto, right? If that's where we're going, where we just stop people from being able to transact, because that's kind of like the point of it all, right? Being able to do all of it, cross country, cross borders, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, bad for all of us. I think it just kind of erodes the crypto use case if something like that happens.
If it can't be money during like stressful situations when your own country's currency is getting nuked and banks are getting nuked and your access to your own money is being restricted, then what's the fucking point? It just turns into like a rich Westerner speculation scheme, which it is, but that's, you know, whatever. It's a separate topic. We've got an hour. Do you want to actually talk about the market?
Yeah, sure.
Also, please tell us in the chat and ideally in the YouTube comments whether you enjoy the not just a chart for an hour type of commentary, ranting content. We like it, but if you say, listen, monkey, draw box, tell me up or down, I guess we'll somewhat understand, although disagree. Look, I haven't been tweeting much, Don, right? I think my last tweet was like a week ago. And the reason is I don't have anything interesting to say. I have tweets from like months ago, it feels like, saying, look, low to mid 30s support, mid to high 40s resistance. That's the range. As same rules apply, you buy support, sell resistance. If the range breaks, you don't fade it until such a time, or if price gets accepted back within the range, and then you can, you know, long or short the deviation. And the market's just done fuck all since that entire time. So I haven't felt the need to flip flop or add running commentary on something that's fundamentally not really changed all too much. What do you think? Am I wrong? Am I just being lazy? And that's coming to a guy who just lives on the beach. So. Answer wisely.
The thing is, like, just look at last week's weekly candle. That just tells you everything. Stuff just gets full retraced, right? And I don't think it makes much sense to trade this if you don't have a significant low time frame edge, which I would doubt, given that a lot of this stuff is headline.
That's exactly right. How much of an edge you need on the low time frames. It's only that requirement is more difficult now, right? Yeah, it's higher because it's so blatantly like TradFi news driven at this point. They're not just competing with like crypto natives on crypto news or whatever. You're dealing with like correlation traders and traditional markets news flow. So whatever like TA edge or even just short-term trading edge you have, we're just seeing that squeezed, I think, especially on lower time frames.
Yeah, and then with regards to kind of how strong has this bounce been off of support, which is the only support we have left until like Goblin Town, basically. I mean, it's just been shit, right? If you just have to look at it, it's really, really bad. So like one of the things that I really don't like is when stuff just chills at support for a long time. We've seen that before. So I'm not too excited. I think there was a trade. I made an argument for a trade on weekly open on Monday.
Did you get fully retraced on?
No. I made the argument that 38K would be a good entry. Stop loss at 35, and then it went basically all the way up to 42 or something. Yeah. But the problem is, right?
You closed the Pico top. Yeah.
No. I mean, I don't have any trading stuff with me, so this was just me laughing about about setups. But you look at it now, right? The setup is still technically available, but if you want to draw like a diagonal from the lowest close across like all the candle bodies to the right, you can just kind of see how shitty these bounces have been, right? So like at the start, it's been like strong bounces, and now we're just kind of laying on top of it, of that trend line, which makes me think there's a good chance that we actually break it. So I would have probably already exited that trade and just been like,
at
"You
the
fuck
top.
this." No, no,
I mean,
no.
hey, it's the LARP trade, so you might as well give yourself a good exit, right?
Might as well, yeah. But it's still in profit. It's still like, I mean, $600 is a lot of money
In
in
this
today's.
market, yeah, that's like half a tank of petrol.
Yep, exactly. But no, I'm not too excited about it. Just
Right.
based on the fact that the bonds have been getting weaker. It's just been like predatory kind of movements all around. It's not something that you should be trading. I know I can say this a million times and people still not going to listen to me. And then they're going to come to me and be like, "Hey, Don, I should have listened to your advice like months ago. Now I'm down like 70% while price hasn't moved at all." But that's just the name of the game, right? I think everyone has to go through that experience at least once, where you think you can squeeze blood out of a rock, or whatever the saying is, water out of a rock. Yeah. When there's nothing to be gained, you just, like, why try so hard when it's so difficult? I don't get the point.
Just go to the beach, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm basically on the beach surfing, living the life. And then once I see the market kind of return, be decent.
I will
and
return as well, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Looking Neptune coming back from his,
yeah,
what do you think of this pump and dump? Not pump and dump. That's so juvenile. Like this, like mega one-sided rally, straight retrace type of structure. I've highlighted it on the chart. It's happened twice in a relatively short time frame. Is it just crab? Is it bearish? I mean, is it just fucking nothing? What you get when you get like algo trading and people trying to momentum trade a range band market? Is there anything to be derived from that type of price action?
I mean, it is not my expertise, but I would guess. And like I said, I haven't been watching. I've just been surfing. But what I'm guessing is that someone tried to like ignite something, and didn't manage to, and then lost a bunch of money in the process. So these kind of moves, what happens is you buy a bunch and you hope it's gonna squeeze, and then it doesn't, and price moves against you, and then you start selling again. And then you actually, like, people actually front run you by shorting into you, or like shorting the order book away, basically.
Yes.
And then you can just kind of give them free money. And I think it kind of looks like that. I don't know if that's what happened, because like I said, I haven't been watching, but I would not be surprised if that's exactly what happened. And when that kind of stuff happens, it's just like, you can go along with it. There's a bunch of people that have a little bit of edge in that kind of scenario, because they see that person be under threat, but you're not going to get much, right? Like, if $1,000 kind of movement in Bitcoin, it's nice, but it's not like a 10 to 40K move that you absolutely have to catch, right? Yeah. It's not like you have to catch every single move in general. People kind of seem to confuse trading with always being in the market, always doing something, because you really don't have to. And for the people that don't have the kind of chance to sit at the beach doing nothing, it makes sense to kind of hone your skills, in my opinion. If you want to make more money, just work a job, I guess.
Or just mint and do an NFT mint, right?
Yeah, I mean, that obviously works as well.
Maybe not as much now.
But yeah, I think that's, like, honestly, like, sometimes the market is just shit and it's not worth trading, and that's fine. And you can use that time productively and learn about stuff in crypto, learn about stuff not in crypto, do something else. Or you can try to, like, just force something. And sometimes it's going to work. Most of the time it's not going to work. So that's my advice. You just probably should not be doing it.
There you go. Also, if you're wondering, well, if you tell me, how do I know when to act? One of the videos I uploaded on Monday is 6 Bitcoin bottom buy whatever bunch of keywords setups, basically, and I just discussed some of the scenarios where 30K becomes attractive, or mid 40s, whatever. So that's a good video if you want actual setups. Like, we could sit here all day and do stupid squigglies. There's just not generally not super helpful. But that video goes over some more, I guess, nuanced ideas. And then there's another one I made, which was the only 2 Bitcoin trades that matter, which is basically 30K holding, and then what to do if 30K doesn't hold. So, if you're looking for something more tangible other than two boomers saying market bad, holiday continue, there is content on the channel to support that. I've been getting back into shape. I'm probably about 2 weeks off from back, being in the best shape of my life again.
Let's go.
So, nice. I think it's been, that kind of stuff gets taken away from you, and the market is absolutely insane. because you're literally just staying up all night, and a bunch of social stuff creeps in, and you're always active, always at the desk. You literally feel like you're bleeding money if you're not trading, right?
Yeah.
Because you can draw any trend line breakout, and then it's probably going to print. And if you miss it, all the moves are like 2-3 times as big, and the pullbacks are just so fucking rare that the opportunity cost of not trading becomes so astronomically high. And I just think health and good habits and all that type of stuff is really easy to let slip. So I've just kind of dropped everything and moved to a different part of the city, and just been doing nothing but really training, eating, reading, and spending maybe a couple of hours a day on market related stuff. So that's been good. So I can't wait to get fat when when we start presenting. Should build some sort of indicator like cred BMI to long ratio or something.
The moment you're shredded.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as like
bottom.
cross below a certain body fat threshold, just start T-wapping longs or something. That would almost certainly work. But yeah, I think that's plenty. I hope this was fun. As always, we do read all the comments and appreciate your feedback. So let us know in the chat or in the comments, ideally both. Be sure to get the FTX app. Support them because they support us, and to have the best mobile app on the market available at your fingertips. Duck, have an excellent evening, and I will see all of you on Monday for Monday Markets and newsletter and all that good stuff. I think Don is back next week as well.
Yeah,
and I should be back week after next, so we'll be in full live stream swing at that point as well. Any final bits or bobs?
No. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it as always. And yeah, we'll see each other Monday, hopefully, if not Wednesday.
Agreed. Like, subscribe, do YouTube stuff. Thank you. Take care. Have an awesome weekend. Love you.